Hari Om. Let's start with the prayer. Om Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidwaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanura Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Tvameva Mata Cha Pitattvameva Tvameva Bandhusya Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. Hari Om. Today is a Republic Day for India, and Happy Republic Day those who are enjoying today. And we are now looking at the world after completing the analysis of who am I and recognizing that I am that Sakshi Chaitanyam or Kutastha Chaitanyam. Kutastha Chaitanyam and Sakshi Chaitanyam are same because from the point of Sat aspect it is unperturbed, undisturbed or unchanging, and we call it a Kutastha Chaitanyam, and from the point of Chit aspect it's called Sakshi Chaitanyam. So Satchit Ananda Swarupam is the all-pervading consciousness, but locally it is that part that is getting reflected, we call it a Kutastha Chaitanyam or Sakshi Chaitanyam. Now we are looking at the world. Say, what is this world? Who am I inquiring requires not only who I am, I should know what the world is. Therefore, Advaita Vedanta is Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya. So, Mithyatma aspect of the Jagat has to be understood. Otherwise, I say I am and the world still both are real. And if I take both are real, Dvaita becomes important, is the essence then. And Dvaita is not a liberation because there is a differentiation of Desakala Vastu Parichinnatvam, a division, difference between me and the world, and there is a Jiva Jagat Bhinnam, and then Jiva Jiva Bhinnatvam, and Jagat Ishvara Bhinnatvam, all Bhinnatvam comes into picture, whereas the Sat Chidananda Swarupam, there is no Bhinnam or differentiation of any kind, no Sajati Vijati, Swagata Vedas. Therefore, I have to understand I am not only I am that pure consciousness all pervading, the world is nothing but. What is the problem? Problem is it is not looking like a conscious entity. It is an inert entity. Therefore, how can the consciousness, the Brahman, because Prajnanam Brahma, the scripture says, the Brahman is nothing but pure consciousness. But how come it is the whole world is unconscious entity? How unconscious entity came from a conscious entity? That's what is essentially is a question. And in the Mundaka Upanishad says, just as says from the Purusha the nails and the hair came from the conscious entity, unconscious entities are coming out also. So that's one example that scripture shows that there is a practical example that one can see. But here in the case of the world, it's essentially the Sat aspect is being expressed in the form of inert things. It is a Satchidananda only, the Brahman only, but defined in terms of or expressed in terms of the existent part only is manifesting in the inert things. How come it's only existent part and not the conscious part? Are you making a part in the Satchidananda? It is partless. All these questions do arise. But when we say pure consciousness and everything else is only reflected, including the reflected Sat aspect, reflected conscious aspect, and reflected Ananda aspect. So all we experience always only reflection, because that's what it is in terms of the attributes. So when we say this is an inert entity, we are looking at the attributive content of the world, and every object in the world is an object. Object by definition is inert, and therefore when we say it is inert, only because only inert part is being expressed in this Nama Rupa. This is the gross elements. And gross elements have only capacity to express or reflect only the Sat part, but not the Chit and Anandam. So hierarchy of the equipment is a problem. In the problems we have a gross material, we have a subtle material, and depending on that we have the expression of the consciousness or existent consciousness and infiniteness, which is same as Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam Brahma. Depending on the equipments we get the reflection. So in the whole world, Jagat, which is completely changing, there has to be changeless entity, and changeless entity is the Sat aspect of the Brahman. And that's how the sloka we were analyzing, the sloka, the 228 of the Viveka Chudamani. It says, Sadidam Paramadvaitam Swasmad Anyasya Vastuno Bhavat Nahi Anyadasti Kinchis Samyak Paratattva Bodha Sudashayam. So we are analyzing this sloka. We said the Sat Idam. So everything is nothing but Idam is nothing but Sat aspect. And for that we analyze it is from the Chandogya Upanishad, where what was there before creation is only pure Sat, and it appears many to become. So I want to become many, and he became many. That's how the Brahman is being defined, and this is called Tatastha Lakshanam. Tatastha Lakshanam is incidental qualification. What is real qualification? Satyam, Jnanam, Ananta is Swarupa Lakshanam. And this is, rest of it is only Tatastha Lakshanam, indicatory definitions. Tatastha Lakshanam means incidental qualifications. So it's not really attributes of the Brahman. Brahman really doesn't become anything, because infinite cannot become anything. Therefore, if we say the universe, it has become into universe, it's only from the point of our recognition only. It is like Tatastha Lakshanam example is, in America all houses look alike. So when we say, hey, you want to see John's house, and I'm trying to point John's house, but every house looks like John's house only. Suddenly one crow sits there on John's house. Now I can identify John's house by looking at the crow. Hey, you see that crow there, sitting there? That is John's house. Now, next time when somebody goes and they say, you want to introduce again John's house, so let me see where the crow sits. I cannot say that, because in this case, it is a Tatasthanam, incidental qualification is used to define Brahman, because Brahman by definition cannot be defined. Why? Because it is Brahman. Infinite cannot be defined. Yado vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha. The words cannot reach there, the mind cannot reach there, because it is not something to reach, and that's what J.K. Krishnamurthy also says, no, there is no path for it. No path means it is infinite, and therefore no words, there cannot be words separate from it to point out it. So it itself is self-evident entity, and through Tatastha Lakshana, therefore it is defined. So how do I know what is Brahman? Says you inquire into the Brahman, Vatato Brahma Jigyasa. Therefore the definition of is Brahman for me to identify and to inquire, and therefore Tat Vijnasasva, you have to inquire into it. How do I inquire? It is from which the whole universe came, by which it is sustained, and into which it goes back. That definition is only Tatastham, because no universe can come from the infinite. And that's what is Ajativada of the Gaudapada in the statement is. But you have to understand Gaudapada correctly also, because Ajativada is from the absolute point, pointing out to the person who sees the creation. So the creation is essentially is apparent but not really real, and that's what is implied in the Upanishad statement Sadidam. That word idam is nothing but Sat. So Aitadatma midagam sarvam tat satyam sa atma sa vigneyaha. So that is the Tattvamasi Svetaketo. So Aitadatma midagam sarvam tat satyam, and Tattvamasi Svetaketo. Svetaketo, you are that, and what is that? That we have been talking about, the existence alone was there. That Sat is nothing but the essence of everything, and that's what the statement is, Sadidam. And Parama Advaitam, we discussed that also. Param supreme, but means there is beyond, nothing is there, and it is Advaitam. Even though I see Dvaitam, it is Advaitam. So Advaitam is apparent duality is there, but it's not really reality, and that's what is Advaita philosophy is. It's not a monoism, it's not the statement that it's only one, because I am seeing two, so I cannot say it's only one, but what I am seeing is only one appearing as many, and that's what is essentially Advaitam is. So Advaitam also comes from the scriptural statement, and it says in the Mandukya Upanishad, in the mantra 7, na anta pragyam, na bhai pragyam, no bhayata pragyam, na pragyana ghanam, na pragyam, na pragyam, adhishtam vyavaharyam, and prapanchopasham shantam shivam advaitam chaturtham manyante sa atma sa vigneya. So about defining Atma, the self that I am, it is shantam shivam. Shivam means the auspiciousness and that which is Advaitam, and it is chaturtham manyante. It's called fourth state, but it's not really fourth because it pervades all the three states. So sadidam paramadvaitam. Swasmad anyasya vastuno abhavat. So if there is one swasmad anya vastunaha abhavat. So if one sees in oneness that pervades everything, but if anyaha asya vastunaha abhavat, so there is no really other objects other than it. That's number one. And if you see it other object, if there is a difference, it's only due to Bhranti. So anyasya vastunaha abhavat nahya anyasasti kinchit samyak paratattva bodha sudashayam. So sudashayam, so in that state of samyak paratattva bodham, in the state of clear understanding of the total understanding of what is reality. So for those people who have grasped the Vedantic teaching that there is only one through Upanishad, through the Vedanta, by Srotavya, by constant listening to the scripture, but through a teacher of the Vedanta Shravanam, after that, and Mananam and Nididhyasanam, after contemplating on it, that is what Sudashayam, in the state of clear understanding, Samyak Paratattva Vodam, having understood the clear knowledge of what is real and what is not really real. So we have defined from the Advaita point that Trikala Abhaditam Satyam, that which remains the same all the time is real, and if Jagat is continuously changing, it doesn't come under category of real, but it doesn't come under category of unreal also, because unreal cannot be experienced. Since I am experiencing it, it's not unreal, but it's changing, therefore it's not real. Therefore I have another word, a third word, a new word has to be coined for this, which neither real nor unreal, and that's called mithya, and that is essentially has to be understood. So for those who see that the totality or have a clear understanding, a cognitive understanding using the buddhi and using Vedanta as a means of knowledge, for them therefore there is ananya vastunaha abhava nahi anyadasti kinchit. Indeed there is no other object in this world. When he sees the oneness, then he doesn't see the other object in the world. So seeing varieties of gold ornaments and looking at the gold ornaments and seeing having the vision of a goldsmith and saying this is all nothing but a gold, for him na anyadasti, no other object is there other than the gold for him. You may say their rings are different, bangles are different, necklaces are different, bracelets are different. Well, there are so much of differences, but all differences don't count. They are only superficial differences for only forms, and they don't have anything to do with the gold. Gold don't have ring forms or a bangle form or a necklace form. Gold is gold only. And the chemically, spectroscopically, all properties of the gold is different from ring and a bangle and a necklace and a bracelet. So therefore, for one who can see or have the vision of, so Sudashayam, who has an understanding or in the state of understanding of the oneness that pervades everything, for him there is no really object there. Nahi anyadasti kinchit. And anyasya vastunaha abhavat. And it's only due to the delusion only one can see other object, for there is no really other object other than what is there, from which it came, by which it is sustained, into which it goes back. This applies only if Brahman is the material cause. Material cause means from which it came, by which it sustained, into which it goes back. That is the definition of Brahman given by the Taittiriya Upanishad, and therefore that is from which it became sustained. Therefore that can only be a material, just as all the ornaments came from gold, sustained by gold, and they go back into gold. Gold remains as gold all the time in spite of changing names and forms as various ornaments, and that has to be understood here. Therefore world is nothing but Brahman. But now this has to be understood also. When I am looking at the world, I should keep this knowledge in my mind, because it's a meditation slokas where it's not only understanding that the world is not different from the Brahman, but when I am transacting, I have to use the differences only, because my bank account is different from your bank account, and everything is one, doesn't apply here when I am transacting in the world. Food is food, garbage is garbage. Even though I am a scientist and I know everything is nothing but electrons, protons or neutrons, I have to differentiate the packaging in terms of for utility, for transactability, for experienceability, all that. Food is food, garbage is garbage. I have no confusion in terms of it, while knowing very well both are same. Fundamentally they are electrons, protons and neutrons. Same way, knowing very well is nothing but the Brahman only in varieties and names and forms, yet the ring is a ring, bangle is a bangle, necklace is a necklace. So in terms of I want to buy a gold, says what form you want to buy, in a ring form or a bangle form or a necklace form or a lump form, depends upon what utility you are going to use it for. The same way, what transactions that you are going to use it for, this is different, that is different, everything is different at the level of transactions, and I have no confusion on that, knowing very well from the point of absolute, there is no difference of any kind, because there is no desakala, vastu parichinnatvam is not there. So therefore here the statement by the Acharya here is says, those who have paratattva bodha, samyak paratattva bodha sudashayam, only in the state of understanding of this absolute reality, those who have the vision of the reality, they don't see any difference between one object and other object at that level, in spite of apparent differences. So looking at the pot, I said there is no really pot here, it says only clay. So at the same time I am using the pot as a pot, and this pot is different from other pot, and I have enough of this pot, and so on and so forth. I can talk about at the transactional level, knowing very well there is no absolutely, the pot is nothing but the clay only in different names and forms. So that has to be understood in analyzing the world is Brahman. So I had to keep that mind, and to the degree that I keep that in my knowledge, to that degree I transact with the world with a clear understanding is only apparent transactions. Therefore I will not get affected by positive or negative experiences. Dukkeshu anudvignamanaha, sukeshu vigadaspruaha, vita raga bhaya krodaha, Sitadhir Muniruchyate. The one who is Muni, the Mananasilavan, who is the one who is contemplative seeker or contemplative realized soul, he knows that he doesn't get affected by the loss or the gain. Dukeshu Anudvigamanaha Sukeshu Vigatasproha. So all those modifications of the mind can go through, but he knows that this is only mental modifications and do not belong to me. In fact, mental modifications itself become less and less because my attachment to the objects is less and less. So when I read a paper in some remote corner in the world, says some earthquake has happened, I read it, say, oh, it's too bad, and then put it aside. Because I don't have direct connection with the people or with the place there, so my attachment is not there. The raga or dveshas are not there. But the same thing happened, if that happened in my hometown or something, then all I am excited, what is happening there, who is surviving there, all the agitations will come because of my attachment. That's how the Gita-upadesha came into picture. Even though if there is nobody, his only opponents, Arjuna would not have any problem. It is because of his grandsire and his teachers, and then he started seeing even the other thais, that is even the Duryodhanas and all that are his own kith and kin, and how can I kill them? That's because of his wrong attachments here. What he is there is for fighting for a justice. Justice has to be done. That transaction world has to be done properly. That's called objective way of living has to be done. But when you bring in your own raga dveshas in terms of the Ishvara Srishti, then there will be a problem. So with that, here we stop. We will continue this with the other slokas, which are essentially illustration of this aspect that the world is nothing but mithya. So I had to use this knowledge while transacting in the world. So the things may be occurring in the world as normal like any other person, but I should not get affected by it because of this knowledge. If a Jivan Mukta will not be affected, for me, until I become that state, I have to practice this as a part. Therefore, I have to give up my attachments. Jage amritattva manasahu. Only by giving up my wrong attachments or wrong understanding, I can only live properly in the world. And that's what is going to be discussed in the next talk. We'll stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.